devastating. I mean, we're not talking enough about what it really does. There's been a lot of present company excluded platitudes about, oh, we're just trying to get at right-sizing a lot of these federal investments. More than 400 rural hospitals are already barely surviving. 46%, frankly, of all rural hospitals barely make it under the current system with Medicare, Medicaid, veterans payment investments in the private market. You take out $880 billion, those hospitals close. All of those outcomes, right? Maternal health, infant mortality, all the things that we need to do better as a country all fall apart. Less access to obstetrics. So in a state that's trying to build healthcare access, this is bad, terrible, the worst. Two more quick things.
Sure.
Every governor in the National Governors Association signed a resolution saying, we'll negotiate with you individually about what we think is best for our states and Medicaid, and you can incentivize those negotiations, but don't just indiscriminately cut funds. So every governor, bipartisan, said this is exactly what our residents and our states don't want. And two, you know what this really is like? It's like having the federal firefighter folks come into your state, and I would know a thing or two about that, in a wildfire, bringing flamethrowers and wind machines. This is not helpful. How about if Congress works on reducing health care costs? And we could do that by restoring the ability to negotiate on drug prices.
Do you find that what you're saying is getting through on Capitol Hill, you and other Democratic governors, or is it?
Well, clearly not,
yeah.
Because what we're seeing so far in the proposed resolution is that the only way to get where they want to go in budget cuts is to go after Medicaid indiscriminately. And frankly, they wouldn't have to do that if they had a health care plan. And Republicans in Congress have never had, as far as I know, a health care plan. And I think Americans should be really disappointed. And I think, quite frankly, they need to be weighing in with their governors and their elected members of Congress. Costs will go up. Small businesses will not be able to afford to provide coverage to their employees. No access means you're out more sick days. Everything that really creates more instability, this is what we're doing. And of course, healthcare is a huge employer. That means fewer people with jobs. None of it makes sense to me.
I want to ask you about immigration. Of course, you preside over a border state, and we hear a lot from the president about the successes he sees in terms of boosting security on the border. I'm curious how that's reverberating across New Mexico. So if you look at people who are here legally, for instance, they look at the ICE raids that are taking place, the degree to which the kind of security mechanism of the United States has been brought to bear here. What's the effect of that had on kind of the zeitgeist in the state among immigrants in New Mexico?
Well, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty in New Mexico, and that even bore out many of the debates in my just ended legislative session. It's our policy session. We've got 48 folks who were sort of the subject of that national kind of coordinated set of raids by ICE trying to utilize local police, and even some Border Patrol folks who shouldn't be in the interior. If you're looking at border security, here's an idea. Have them at the border. There's a lot of angst. New Mexicans, and I would add my own direct opinion and voice here. My job is to represent effectively my state and also solve problems. We agree that bad actors, frankly, whether you're from here or not, we would welcome the federal government to do more in drug interdiction, to do more about stopping guns, drugs, and human trafficking at the border and anywhere else. What doesn't help us at all is not focusing on bad actors, but going after children and their families indiscriminately at hospitals, schools, and at workplaces. That just creates fear and anger and animosity and doesn't make our country any safer, nor does it help us build an economy that works for everyone. Here's what we should do. How about after they fix healthcare with a real plan that doesn't indiscriminately cut Medicaid, maybe we should pass a border bill.
On the issue of incentives and the incentive structures that are being put in place here, Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, just announced if a person self-deports, uses this government app to self-deport, and it's confirmed by the country to which they go, they'll get $1,000. Does stuff like that work? I'm just curious, sort of your sense of the dialogue again around how this government is both incentivizing and kind of pushing people out of the country.
Well, again, look, I understand that I mean, I worked for governors, and now I am one. President set a pretty grand target for deportations that I don't think were based in fact in any context, and you got a cabinet secretaries trying to meet that. I think it is a ineffective and really gross tool to suggest that people were just here to quickly make a buck and that there's no real issue with asylum and refugee status and trying to build a safer future for your family. And it's pretty disrespectful. What we ought to be doing is stop separating families. No one in America, I don't think at least, wants to see another 3-year-old in a courtroom by themselves, or American children who are separated from their country because their parents are leaving, or the opposite, they are not going with their parents or parent, and there's very little information. New Mexicans, I think, reflect where a lot of the country really is. One, if you're a bad actor, help us. I don't want any bad actors. I want no more human trafficking. I want no more drugs moving through this country from anywhere. China, Russia, Mexico, anywhere. At the border or in the mail, in a truck or by plane or by boat, we don't want them. Two, I want us to leverage and coordinate our law enforcement so that we make every community, including my state, safer. And lastly, I want a better, fair investment about immigration policy so that you can get visas on the front end and that you can work here on the back end, and it's transparent and fair and meaningful. They have the opportunity to do that. Why don't they do that instead? I think that's what Americans are really, wanting. But this is an administration, I think, that wants to politicize this issue and try to divide America.
I have a unique opportunity to ask you what that level of engagement is like with this administration. I think a lot of us saw that moment in the White House when your colleague Janet Mills of Maine stood up effectively to the president, and it was icy, and there was blowback from him. There's been a settlement with Maine more recently. Do you feel like you can be heard, that there is any kind of dialogue between you as the head of a state and this administration, or is it simply kind of irreparably divided at this point? Under this president?
My hope is that it's not divided. I'm actually working to get in to talk to as many secretaries. Did that today. Had some good news from the Veterans Administration on a request for a waiver so that we can keep building and investing in the ways that we have been for veterans' long-term care, and we got that. We want to do drug interdiction and focused work with Homeland Security. We have a lot of emergency response issues. I need that relationship. I have a relationship with Secretary Noem from our time as governors and in Congress. And there are plenty of others, like the Secretary of Interior, Doug Burgum. And I'm working to develop a relationship in the White House. In my long career, I hope that most New Mexicans still think it's been an effective effort. I still love my state, and I'm working hard. And our economy is, I think, proof positive, and our cradle-to-career investments, bar none, best in the country. Every administration, irrespective of party, I have great support from and agreements with, and the opposite. And so it's navigating and doing what's right for your citizens. And I will tell you what my businesses are telling me. Can we land in a place that's predictable, that's fair, that doesn't feel like it's a roller coaster because they don't expand, they don't invest when that's the situation. So my job is to create stability in every single relationship in the federal government. But I also don't tolerate and shouldn't anybody who goes after my state or tries to do something that hurts a New Mexican or their family. Any administration, including this one, should expect me to punch above my weight class.
Last question. We got about a minute left. You were recently in Japan and Singapore. What were those conversations like as you talked to government leaders there about the prospects for investment and economic opportunity in this country, given the uncertainty that you were just talking about?
I'm worried about tariffs. I mean, there wasn't a single meeting that didn't start with that. I was there with another governor, governor of Wyoming, and we were very clear we don't set that federal policy. We're certainly not in a position and won't to try to negotiate that. That's going to happen between you and the White House. But we have also right? We signed saying that tariffs is, not the right for us, free trade, capitalistic set of policies that we think work best in our states. We were really clear about that. And where we really highlighted the opportunities in this administration is energy dominance, if you will, or production. The second largest oil and gas producer, we produce the cleanest barrel of oil and the cleanest liter of gas on the globe, because we set very, very clear carbon, intensity, lack thereof requirements. We have the strongest methane rules now that they've been rolled back at the federal government in the country. And guess where these countries want to go? They want to purchase the cleanest gas. Guess who has the largest gas reserve? New Mexico. So here's where I think I can find a really productive path. This administration wants to make sure that energy security around the globe runs right through the USA. I want New Mexico to be at the front of that. And frankly, Western states have been powering Western states forever, and Eastern states are going to need our energy. Solar, wind, geothermal, storage. Many states are working on small-scale nuclear fusion. That's happening in New Mexico as we speak. And absolutely, let us get LNG around the world.